Begin on either Wednesday or Thursday. The announcement comes amid heightened violence in the country and follows a brutal attack on a girls' school on Saturday that killed as many as 60 people, most of them students. The death toll continues to climb. And the first-named storm of the Eastern Pacific hurricane system is moving off the southwestern coast of Mexico. More on these.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
7 minutes past the top of the hour. You're tuned in to the Big Talker 106.7 FM. You can find us at BigTalkerFM.com. Our live audio feed available through our website with our video portion of the program up and running this morning on our YouTube channel. Also through our Facebook feed as well. You can find us at the Big Talker 106.7 FM across the digital space today and each and every morning throughout the course of the week. Also through your mobile app, your mobile device can carry our audio feed each and every day by searching WFBT, Big Talker FM, in the Apple iStore for your iPhone and the Google Play Store for your Android. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend after that crazy storm that rolled through Friday morning. In fact, right after we jumped off the air Friday morning, I had to jump in the car and hightail it towards Conway for the 3-game baseball series that got underway 1 o'clock Friday afternoon. And as I'm crossing over the bridge and entering through Leland and then just over the outskirts of Leland, Highway 17 South, all of a sudden, well, it looked like the sky was going to open up, and it in fact did, as most of us experienced some hail and a nasty thunderstorm. And, I cruised about 25 minutes through that with the hail feeling like it was going to bust through my windshield and dent the old Hyundai Sonata. But it made it, and so did we. Here we are. It's Monday morning, May 10th, 2021. Fresh off a Mother's Day weekend, so with baseball season still, moving down the stretch now. Mother's Day, well, for myself, I kind of got off in a way that I didn't have to, go out and about to provide mom, grandma, mother-in-law, and wifey with all of the treats and the other loving that they get on a normal basis anyway. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here because Friday after the game, I drove all the way back and took them all out to dinner. So yesterday, because with baseball going on and some other things around with the family, we were unable to get together as a group. Last night, I got home and we grilled up some USDA prime beef, courtesy of my friend John Mullins at America's Choice Gourmet, and all was well. There was peace at the Catenacci home to round out a Mother's Day weekend. I hope you were able to get out and enjoy it like millions of others were over the course of the last few days. As we were wrapping up our show on Friday, the Labor Department was releasing their jobs report for the month of April. And what a disaster, by the way, of an employment report. It's really hard, and, you want to get off on the right foot on a Monday morning, but it's really hard to think about where this country was from an economic and an opportunity standpoint just 14 months ago as compared to where we are today. If you can recall, there were months after months on end of growth within our economy during the 4-year period in which Donald J. Trump was the commander in chief. In fact, how many times during the Trump administration did we hear these monthly job reports highlight the fact that the economy was outperforming the experts, what they were predicting? The analysts who, of course, releases some of their numbers and where they think the economy is going a few days before the actual report is released by the Labor Department. How many times during the Trump administration did we hear these monthly reports outperform what was predicted by the experts, the analysts, those in the know? And now here we are. 5 months into this new administration, massive government spending, tax increases on the horizon, more regulation getting put on business, more hoops to jump through, hurdles to leap over, thanks to an ever-growing centralized government. Just 5 months into this, and the agenda is clear. With the time ticking, as Democrats, of course, anticipate traditional losses during the midterms that may flip one or both of the chambers of Congress. This past week, the experts were predicting well north of 1 million new jobs in our country and a lower unemployment rate. And what do we get? Well, even the analysts and the experts at CNBC were having a tough time putting it all together as the Labor Department was getting ready to release a much-anticipated jobs report with the experts predicting well north of 1 million new jobs.
Steve, because he's got the number. Okay, good, 1.08. Steve, the number.
Wow, it just came across. Give me a second here. We have the number here. Just came across. Sorry about that. It came across very quickly here. It looks like 266,000. It looks like it was a big disappointment at 266, but maybe I have that wrong. Let me double check the Bureau website here. 1 second. Yes, 266 is correct. Unemployment change, little change to 6.1%. So we have some issues here.
266,000.
Long-term unemployed.
Big revision.
Yes, that's what I'm.
Last
month,
month, 770 versus 916. Yes, minus 78,000 on the revision. If we look at manufacturing, change in private payrolls, it was only 218,000. Manufacturing minus 18,000. The unemployment rate went up to 6.1.
The April jobs report was so bad that even the experts at CNBC had to double check the number to make sure they read it correctly. And, I don't want to be, the bearer of bad news here and be the negative Nancy, as the conversation can often take that course, given what we're seeing play out in reality, given the fact that it was the government that shut us down for the better part of the past year. In fact, some states remain shut down. How states are not fully reopened at this point is beyond me. Expecting well north of 1 million new jobs and lower unemployment, and what do we get? Even the experts and the analysts on CNBC had to double check it and sputter their way through the big jobs announcement on Friday. I mean, certainly, this pathetic jobs report cannot be associated to a government shutdown for the better part of the past year. Certainly, this pathetic jobs report cannot be associated with that high-paying unemployment income keeping people home. Certainly, this pathetic jobs report could not be the unions keeping schools closed. You mix it all together, and what you get is an economic disaster. Along with, how about this? Another story that was published this past week. So over the last week and a half, we have highlighted 3 national news outlets now, as I get ready to lay this one on you. that have covered stories that for the better part of the past year, we've been talking about to the point where it's made us sick to our stomach. First, it was the rise in cost of materials, the lumber prices, the cost to do business, given the fact that many people within certain industries have just been unable to find the materials needed to carry out their work. We highlighted the construction industry, of course, on Friday. As far as lumber goes, we have a listener who was talking about how they have seen a sharp increase in the rise of cost for sheet metal as somebody who works in the HVAC business. Then it was, of course, a story in the New York Times where they followed a 11-year-old boy for a week to see how difficult it's been for him to learn all virtually, only to find out that, of course, in the bigger cities, the teacher unions had been colluding with the CDC to prevent the agency from giving the go-ahead to open up the schools. And all of the stuff associated with our kids and almost 2 years loss of schooling. The fact that 3 million kids have dropped out of school over the past year. And many of those kids, no one could find them. Just disappeared. And here's the latest story based on, a year of talking about this and beating it into the ground day in and day out. A crisis of undiagnosed cancers is emerging in the pandemic's second year. 94% of cancer screenings plummeted this time last year due to the pandemic. And the story goes on and talks about every individual person that they caught up with as it relates to breast and colorectal cancer. These are two cancers that, when detected early, are very curable. Screenings, preventative cancer screenings, plummeted by as much as 94% during the first 4 months of last year. As patients return to their doctors, as the report lays out, the toll of those dark months is becoming visible. The National Cancer Institute has predicted almost 10,000 excess deaths from breast and colorectal cancer alone because of pandemic-related delays in diagnosing and treating these two cancers, which often can be detected early through screening and account for 1 in 6 cancer deaths. So over the past year, once again, we handed things over to Dr. Fauci, and look where we're at. Underperforming in the economy with a more centralized approach, with tax increases on the horizon, ridiculous amounts of government spending. That's not to say President Trump didn't like to slide the credit card. But what we've seen here over the past just 5 months, with more on the horizon, is just digging us a deeper ditch. Welcome to the Harris-Biden economy. And you can expect this report to start and continue some of the tour that Joe Biden has been making over the past week, demanding trillions and trillions of more federal spending. But I guess on the positive side, we don't have those mean tweets, and Orange Man Bad is no longer the leader of the free world, right? I mean, those on the left argue that people will still work hard, invest, innovate, and power an economy under, socialism, which removes all incentives to work hard, invest, innovate, and power an economy. The left argues that this will still happen if, in fact, we continue to move towards that way of life. In the reality, people refuse to work when the government gives them an extra $300 a week. I think many people, their eyes have been opened for a long, long time. I'm just not sure how millions of people across this country don't have serious buyer's remorse at this point in following the way of Fauci and the Democrat Party. But I guess Orange Man is bad. We're 20 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM.
Chewing on a piece of grass, walking down the road. Tell me, how long you gonna stay here, Joe?
When you decide to sell that unwanted gold jewelry, coins, or fine silver, you should get the highest price possible. Perry's has been giving people more for their gold, silver, and estate jewelry for 25 years in a safe and private environment that is trusted by your neighbors and friends. We pay the most because we want you to come back to Perry's Emporium. Whether it's to sell more unwanted items or to buy new jewelry for any occasion, check elsewhere and then get the Perry's price and you'll see. Perry's Emporium on the corner of Shipyard and Independence in beautiful Barclay Commons and on the web at perrysemporium.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I wanted to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
With a customer referral rating of 96%, Two Men and a Truck Wilmington has proven time and time again they are the top local choice when it comes to all of your moving needs. Offering a wide range of professional moving services, including local and long-distance moving, business relocations, both full or partial packing services and storage, Two Men and a Truck is dedicated to exceed customer expectations and reliability, quality of service, and care. To start your quote, log on to twomenandatruck.com or call 910-210-0224.
We wouldn't sell you a dining room table, so don't buy a medical device from a furniture store. US Med Express is Wilmington's leading supplier of golden technology lift and sleep chairs, carrying a variety of models in our showroom at 1733 Dawson Street. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
When
25 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM. Our number is 910-299-7535. If you'd like to chime into the program, that's 910-299-7535. Terrible news out of New York City over the weekend following a shooting at Times Square. One on Saturday afternoon. And I'm reading a report from the Washington Examiner as a young mother recalls begging for her life during the shooting. Uh, Incredibly sad situation once again playing out in our country's biggest city, as we have seen time in and time out over the last year or so, the rise in violence, particularly within our major cities. I mean, who would have thought when you shut down the country, you push efforts to and make calls to defund the police, and you pit every piece of society against one another. Who would have thought that the crazies would come out and try and run the streets, as we saw in the middle of Mother's Day weekend in New York City, something playing out in Times Square. The ways in which New York City was rotting to its core back in the days of the 70s and 80s, before a man by the name of Rudy Giuliani came in and cleaned things up. This woman said that she saw, as she's trying to dodge bullets and keep herself safe, that she saw bystanders filming on their cell phones instead of trying to help the victims. The bullet she was struck with reportedly remains lodged in her leg. 2 other victims suffered injuries from the shooting, including a 4-year-old girl and a 43-year-old woman. This 23-year-old mother, who was one of 3 people wounded in the shooting at Times Square, said she remembers begging for her life amid the chaos in the city to celebrate Mother's Day with her mother, her sister, other family members, when a fight between several men resulted in one of them opening fire into a crowd around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So the city of New York is in the middle of an election for a new mayor. Andrew Yang, who ran for the Democratic nomination for President of the United States in the build-up to 2020, he is now a candidate for mayor in New York City. And he took to Twitter, and he seems like a sensible guy. Well, and addressing the Times Square shooting, he says that public safety is paramount. Making a bold statement here as a Democrat and a progressive, the police will be key to our recovery. He said, under his leadership, if elected mayor, we will establish a new anti-violence unit of specially trained plainclothes officers to reduce guns and gun violence. Well, if the year wasn't 2021, and if we did not already have many of these sorts of units, particularly within cities like New York, that had been criticized, demagogued, and, of course, shut down in many instances because of progressive like Andrew Yang, you wouldn't have to come up with such a bold idea. So for years, folks cut from the same cloth as Andrew Yang have been pushing efforts to get rid of units like the New York City Anti-Crime Unit. The police will be key to our recovery in efforts to make our city safe. Who would have thought? And listen to this. We will establish a new anti-violence unit of specially trained plainclothes officers to reduce guns and gun violence. Well, these sorts of units, of course, were eliminated under the guidance of Mayor de Blasio and many other Democrat progressive leaders within cities all across the country. So while Mr. Yang has some great ideas, well, they've been tried before, and in fact, they've worked until folks of your beliefs get leadership positions and then eliminate these sorts of units and wonder why we see a rash and an increase of violence. We will call them, guess what we will call them? We will call them police officers. And it will be glorious. We will establish a new anti-violence unit of specially trained plainclothes officers, undercover officers even, we may call them, to reduce guns and gun violence in our city. Folks, this is a clown show. We are in La La Land. That is a bold new idea put forth by Andrew Yang this weekend in the face of another troubling shooting in Times Square, where a 4-year-old was injured along with 2 other women. The police, he says, will be key to our recovery. That public safety is paramount. And we will call them police officers, and they will wear plain clothes. We may even use the term undercover. It will be glorious. You will be safe. This is a candidate for mayor of the country's largest city. And that's a bold idea from someone given his political beliefs and where he stands on the spectrum. It will be glorious. They will be police officers. You will be safe. La La Land, folks. Our number is 910-299-7535. Ray Nothstine going to join us just after 8 o'clock this morning. We'll also hear from Hannah Cox of the Foundation for Economic Education, host of the podcast known as Based. Hannah, always a fun guest to catch up with. She joins us in about 90 minutes from now, right after 9 o'clock.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. Investigations continue into several weekend shootings across the country. A gunman in Colorado opened fire during a birthday party early Sunday morning, leaving behind a horrific scene with more than a half dozen dead inside a mobile home. And in the heart of Times Square on Saturday afternoon, gunfire erupted, wounding 3 innocent bystanders, including a child. As people are getting vaccinated and resuming their normal activities, the American Red Cross is reminding people that there is still a need for blood donations. They say healthy individuals are encouraged to make a blood donation appointment now. If you've had your COVID-19 vaccine, as long as you're symptom-free, feeling well, and can provide your vaccine maker's name, there is no waiting period. Repaving will begin on a major road in Bladen County today. According to the North Carolina Department of Transportation, crews will be working on about 9 miles of Highway 242 between Baldwin Branch Church Road and where 242 meets 130 and 410 in Bladenboro. The work begins this morning and will take 90 days. Drivers should expect delays of about 15 minutes in the work zone. The Wilmington Sharks will be hosting their first hiring event this evening to fill a number of game day operations positions for the 2021 season. If you're interested, head over to Hampton Inn Medical Park at 2320 South 17th Street from 5 until 7 o'clock this evening. There will be another hiring event on Wednesday. And Rory McIlroy is a winner again after 18 long months, and he picked the perfect place at Quail Hollow in Charlotte. McIlroy closed with a 68 for a one-shot victory in the Wells Fargo Championship. It was his 3rd victory at Quail Hollow and the 19th of his career on the PGA Tour. Abraham Ancer closed with a 66 and was runner-up. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Romel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, we're going to see another warm and breezy one out there across the Cape Fear. Temperature-wise, we'll top off in a low to middle 80s, similar to our Sunday. We're also going to be dealing with winds out of the south-southwest, anywhere between 15 to 20 miles per hour under partly to mostly cloudy skies. And we do have a chance for some showers and isolated thunderstorms to develop late this evening as we get towards sunset. That cold front's going to move through our region. And behind it tonight, temperatures dropping down into the lower 60s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Being beat up and battered around, being sent up and I've been shut down. You're the best thing that I've ever found. Handle me with care. Reputation's changeable, situation's tolerable, but baby you're adorable. Handle me with care.
All right, we're 24 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker FM. If you'd like to call in, our number is 910-299-7535. Of course, we've got various ways in which you can get in contact with us. If you'd rather not phone in with your thoughts, you can drop us a message on our Facebook page, of course, through our email as well. We'd be happy to grab your message and share it with our listening audience, however you may be tuned in today. My sister out in Kennesaw, Georgia, sent me a picture last night as she and her husband, my brother-in-law, took their two little ones to their first Atlanta Braves game yesterday, as the Atlanta Braves here in the month of May have now opened their stadium up at full capacity, the way in which the Texas Rangers have been operating since the very beginning of the year, having been to both areas over the last couple of months. Well, much different scenario in Texas, Georgia, as compared to other states around the country. The Braves at full capacity now. I've been down to Texas, went to their ballpark, 35,000. That was several weeks ago. And I got to say, as a baseball guy, as somebody who, as a kid, my dad and I would go to all sorts of ballparks growing up. And that was, for a little while there, as I got older, was a part of any trip that I took on a vacation. It was always centered around, well, let's see if the Yanks are in town. In fact, the last time we went to California, I can't believe it's been 7 years ago, the last time we were out in California. That was before my aunt and uncle moved and sold their house in Orange County and moved to Florida, that they took us to an Angels-Yankees game. It was the last year Derek Jeter was playing in his career. And then we went down to San Diego, caught a ball game. I got to say, having been to all these different cities across parts of the country, I've got no desire, and it burns me to say this, I've got no desire to go to a place like New York City. I've got no desire to go to a Yankees game in the Bronx. And that sickens me to my stomach to say that. Having grown up a diehard Yankees fan, my dad and I went to 9 straight opening days in April between the late 80s and mid-90s. It sickens me to my stomach to say that, but when you see things playing out like we have over the course of the last year, shootings in Times Square in broad daylight, the ridiculous decisions made by their elected officials to keep much of their areas locked down, in some cases still. Heck, I'd rather just jump in the car, take a ride out, see my sister, go out to the Battery around Truist Park. Great new development that they put together north of Atlanta in Marietta, where the Braves play. Great little setup over there. Out to Arlington, so many different places I'd rather be than spend my money in a place like New York City. And it sickens me to my stomach having grown up there. Great place to grow up. Also this weekend out in Charlotte, good to see the PGA back at Quail Hollow for the Wells Fargo Championship. And heck, to have a player like Rory McIlroy win the tournament. Remember when PGA came here? That was a lot of fun when the Wells Fargo came this way. And I thought about that yesterday as I caught some of the highlights of Rory's win, and it was a while since he had won a PGA event. When the Wells Fargo came here, I had just got fired from my previous job because I wasn't into the meetings that the Progressive Newsroom held on a daily basis. Meeting after meeting after meeting with the corporate entities of our company. Local news outlet run by Williamsburg, Virginia, and San Francisco, California. No thanks. So I just got fired from my job. I had passes. I had all the media information, everything for that entire weekend. I was there every day with no job and a little worried that the future wasn't so certain, given that my wife was also knocked up at the time with Sophia. No job. Well, we'll figure it out. I had like a flashback last night when I saw that he had won the Wells Fargo and that there were fans at Quail Hollow, and it looked like it should look. That's what we call normal. There's no new normal. Get out of here with that kind of talk. That's one of the things I do miss most doing what I do. You know, when we go to events as a member of the media, you're not with your friends or your family, enjoy the entertainment for what it is, per se. So I think when we do start to get out and about, and I get Sophia to her first ball game, I'd always thought it would be Yankee Stadium. And I don't know. There's no desire to go up there to the Big Apple. In fact, I think my wife's going up there with her mother and my daughter in a couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm headed south. You can have it. Other than, of course, 93-year-old grandma who's still plugging away up there with her Virginia Slims and her Robert Mondavi cab. Still working through the days. Unbelievable. But great to see the Atlanta Braves opening to full capacity. I mean, it's like we're living in two different worlds. You hear like a Dr. Fauci on a Sunday talk show tell us this, that, or the other. And the people of New York, California, all nod their heads in assurance that Dr. Fauci is guiding them in the right direction. And then you go, to South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and it's wide open. And folks aren't living their lives. Oh, new study out from just this week, highlighting the fact that transmission of COVID cases appeared over the past year to be more prevalent inside the home rather than, as we were originally told, transmission, of course, at outdoor events, indoor gatherings. New study reveals that stay-at-home orders backfired, as U.S. households had the highest COVID-19 transmission rates. So you're telling me if you're sick and in your home with a virus, that others in your home may be susceptible to that virus. Wow. I'm not sure the science ever told us something like that. Households have had the highest transmission rates. schools, businesses, and other organizations implemented a range of prevention protocols, from adjusting airflow to installing physical barriers to monitoring compliance to administering their own testing services. Well, it turns out these measures were probably needed more inside the home. And the stay safe, stay home theme was nothing more than bad advice, as this new economic study finds that households show the highest transmission rates of COVID. Work environments were generally safer than poorly ventilated homes with people. Who would have thought? It's like we're in this little daze where we've actually never heard of such things before. That those inside a home with a person who is sick may also get sick. Yet we flipped our economy upside down. Our kids have 2 years of learning loss. Tens of thousands of people go undiagnosed. Now we're finding this in a new report that the Cancer Institute predicts an excess of some 10,000 deaths over the next few years for people who went undiagnosed in this 12-month period for cancers such as breast cancer and colorectal cancer. Two cancers, of course, which, if detected early, are very treatable. We gave all this to the government. This makes me sick to my stomach. And there are still people, of course, that butt heads with folks that have this belief that, well, if we open up, maybe we can put our best foot forward rather than allow Uncle Sam to take more and more of our money and redistribute the way they feel is best suited for we the people. Expecting well north of 1 million new jobs and lower unemployment rate for the month of April. And the Labor Department, as we were wrapping up our show Friday, released a job report. It shows a complete disaster. Hard to think about where this country was some 14 months ago from an economic and an opportunity standpoint, yet here we are today. 12 minutes in front of the hour. Ray Nothstine going to join us just after 8 o'clock. Our phone number is 910-299-7535.
All right, the joys of tax season, right? Pulling out old receipts, filling out endless forms, and trying to get it all submitted before that all-important deadline. Now, the only thing that could make the whole process more fun is if identity thieves somehow get a hold of the tax forms with your personal information. Guess what? Then you're in real trouble. But LifeLock, they monitor the use of your personal information. You get alerts to any possible suspicious activity. And if you're a victim of identity theft, they have U.S.-based restoration specialists and will work to fix it for you. No one company can prevent all identity theft or monitor every transaction of every business, but LifeLock sees certain threats that others miss, and they help you keep what is yours. Call now, 1-800-LifeLock, or just go to lifelock.com, promo code Hannity. You'll save up to 25% off your first year just by calling 1-800-LifeLock or going to lifelock.com. That's lifelock.com, 1-800-LifeLock, promo code Hannity. You'll save up to 25% off.
Parents, how old were were you when you paid off your student loan? Are you still paying for it? Student debt can be crippling, and today it's even more important to keep debt in check. Help your student build a brighter financial future by encouraging them to attend Cape Fear Community College for the first 2 years. CFCC costs thousands less than four-year schools, and classes in our university transfer program are accepted at four-year schools across the state and beyond. Help your kids get a head start academically and financially at CFCC. Learn more at cfcc.edu.
Tune in on Friday mornings to hear The Construction Connection, a collaborative effort between Joe Catenacci with the Big Talker FM and Cameron Moore, the executive officer of the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. You start the conversation and we bring you the answers as we take a regional, in-depth look at growth-related topics and issues centered around the residential and commercial development and building industry. The Construction Connection, Friday mornings on the Big Talker FM.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Our friend Ray Nothstine going to join us just after the top of the hour news timeout with CarolinaJournal.com and the John Locke Foundation. One of our longtime friends of the program, Levi, I guess caught a laugh as I was going through the bold new idea by Andrew Yang, the candidate for mayor in New York City, as he responded with some plans, if elected, the new New York City mayor, as to how he will work to reduce guns and gun violence in his city. Of course, what was he, a congressman out in California, and now has come east, running for mayor in New York, and addressed the Times Square shooting from over the weekend, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Mother's Day weekend. And, there's a dispute between two men. No care or worry of any innocent people around them. Guy pulls out a gun and starts shooting. 3 people injured, including a 4-year-old girl. Not a good look, New York. So as the mayor candidate says in addressing the Times Square shooting, and I guess Levi got a little chuckle out of this, as did I, in that his bold solution to help reduce gun violence in the city, well, public safety is paramount, and the police will be key to our recovery. We will establish a new anti-violence unit of specially trained plainclothes officers to reduce guns and gun violence. It's almost like we've been here before. They will be undercover. We will call them police officers. And we can give them cars. And they'll be unmarked. And we can call them police cars. It will be glorious. Yes, it will. Oh, brother. Just in from Friday, the U.S. economy added only 200 66,000 jobs in April, far less than forecasts had predicted. The unemployment rate rose a percentage point, tenth of a percentage point. So how about that? Somehow, some way, the Democrats have half the country convinced that if we move towards more centralized government, that'll continue to promote hard work, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Yet it appears from the surface as if Americans have chosen to stay home rather than seek employment over an extra $300 a week. But I think a more centralized way of life might be better suited for us Americans, given the reality of all this, that millions of people are okay with, the check that arrives in the mail every couple of weeks, got a few extra dollars in it. I can buy my smokes and take the wife out every once in a while. It's good for me. Good enough for my house. People are not going to return to work if they'll be making more money sitting at home on unemployment. Does that make them lazy? Well, maybe. It also does mean that they are properly responding to incentives, which is the base of our entire country. Incentivizing people to work and create. We need to change the incentives if we want people to work again. It's a very novel thought in this year, 2021. The agenda has been clear. We will pay people not to work. And now with this whole waiver of the intellectual property rights for our companies that have fast-tracked and have defied the odds when it has come to what Operation Warp Speed created, with the private industry working closely with the government to move something forward and quickly to get us back on our feet. Well, now that same government wants to sell off all of the hard work, the research, and the innovation that was created by these businesses. We want to tax entrepreneurs at ridiculous rates to cripple their ability to grow, thrive, and provide incentives to their employees. This all wrapped up in about 25 seconds explains the Harris-Biden agenda to the T. And, well, America bought the ticket, and America takes the ride. At least that is the case in some states. Others, finally defying what is being laid out there as far as the agenda goes. In places like South Carolina, the state of Montana, their governor, Greg Gianforte, announced last week that his state will be opting out of the extra federal unemployment benefits amid a workforce shortage in a variety of industries. Starting next month, Montana will no longer participate in the federal pandemic unemployment assistance program. The state will stop issuing the extra $300 weekly supplemental payments. The government will no longer partake in the mixed earner unemployment compensation program, which offered additional money to those who had both traditional W-2 income as well as self-employment income. And instead, the federal aid will be replaced with a return-to-work bonus program, which will give $1,200 payments to individuals who leave unemployment and work for at least 4 weeks. And even there, it's pretty unbelievable that this is what we have to do to incentivize people to get off the rear end and do something for themselves. But nonetheless, Montana, South Carolina, and a few others moving forward with these sorts of ideas because the federal government is happy with keeping people in their cubicles and moving forward with this all-out agenda that expands the federal government, a centralized way that takes a lot of decision rights away from the states. And when we get back, Ray Nothstine and I are going to talk about this argument for states' rights. You look at the census data, places like New York, California, they're getting ready to lose a congressional seat. In fact, California reported its first yearly population decline in its history of a state, a drop of more than 182,000 people. Doesn't this make the case as to why we need to keep the federal government out of the way? Let the states compete with one another. More ideas get tried. The successful ways are recreated in other states, and the inferior ideas go away. Ray Nothstine and I will jump into this conversation when we get back for our second hour of the program right after this.
Keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Down of the pipeline that carries gasoline and other fuel from Texas to the Northeast is continuing. The U.S. government is taking steps to avoid disruptions in the East Coast fuel supply after the pipeline was shut down.
The Department of Transportation announced it would relax hours of service regulations for drivers carrying gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other refined petroleum products. The move allows them to work extra or more flexible hours to make up for any fuel shortage related to the pipeline outage. That applies to drivers carrying fuel to 17 states and the District of Columbia.
The shutdown was caused by a cyber attack. That's White House correspondent Greg Clugston reporting. Top House Republican Kevin McCarthy has publicly endorsed Representative Elise Stefanik for the post of number 3 leader. That cements the party conference's support of the Donald Trump loyalist over Representative Liz Cheney. House Republicans could vote as early as Wednesday to remove Cheney and replace her with Stefanik. Some states are making plans to spend billions of dollars from President Biden's Pandemic Relief Act, though the money has yet to arrive.
A law signed by the president earlier this year contains $350 billion of flexible aid for state and local governments. Some states already planning to use part of it to prop up their depleted unemployment accounts, expand high-speed internet, or provide aid to schools and businesses.
That's correspondent Rhonda Rockstra reporting. Meanwhile, the first installment of the Relief Act is expected to arrive soon. Chinese state media say China will draw a separation line atop Mount Everest to prevent the coronavirus from being spread by climbers ascending on Nepal's side of the mountain. Xinhua news agency says a team of guides will set up the separation line at the peak before climbers attempt to reach the summit. More on these stories at townhall.com.
If your family depends on your income and something happened to you, what would happen to them? You need life insurance, and SelectQuote can help you get it at a price you can afford.
SelectQuote found Jacob, 40, who's in excellent health, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $19 a month.
Not in perfect health? Don't worry.
SelectQuote found Tanya, 40, who has type 2 diabetes, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $32 a month.
We shop companies like Protective, Prudential, American General, and others to find you the company with the best rates. Give your family the security they need at a price you can afford.
For your free quote, call 1-800-880-7474. That's 1-800-880-7474. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-880-7474.
SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policies at selectquote.com/commercials. Your premium could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has invited the leaders of the UK's devolved nations for crisis talks on the Union after Scotland's pro-independence party won its 4th straight parliamentary election. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she is firm the Scots will get another chance to vote on Scottish independence.
Said in this election I wanted to give people in Scotland the choice of independence, and I intend to do that when we are out of the crisis.
Johnson congratulated Sturgeon on her re-election, but said in a letter to her that the UK was, quote, best served when we work together. Marriott International has reported a first quarter loss of $11 million after reporting a profit in the same period a year earlier. The Bethesda, Maryland-based company said it had a loss of 3 cents per share. Earnings, adjusted for one-time gains and costs, came to 10 cents a share. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Jeremy House. Germany commemorates the 100th birthday of Sophie Scholl, a young woman who became an icon for her role in the anti-fascist White Rose resistance group.
Scholl and other group members were arrested in 1943 after scattering leaflets critical of Adolf Hitler's regime and the war from a balcony at the University of Munich. She and her brother Hans were executed 4 days later after refusing to apologize. The group's story, including the Scholl siblings' gradual awareness and then rejection of the horrors of National Socialist ideology and militarism, has become a staple of history lessons in German schools. It's been regularly dramatized in films, plays, and even an Instagram account. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
An Australian judge has rejected a challenge to a temporary COVID-19 ban on citizens returning from India. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Back here for our second hour of the show, 7 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour here on this Monday, May 10th, 2021. You're tuned in to the Big Talker 106.7 FM. Of course, you can find us at BigTalkerFM.com. Live audio feed available through our website, also on our mobile app. You can find us in the Apple iStore for your iPhone and the Google Play Store for your Android. Just search Big Talker 106.7 FM. Video portion of the show, of course, available through our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page as well. Ray Nothstine from CarolinaJournal.com and the John Locke Foundation joins us as he does every Monday. Our Monday morning quarterback of sorts with us here on this Monday morning. Ray, it's a pleasure as always, my friend. How you doing today?
Good morning. Doing all right.
Hey, so I hear your little 3-year-old son is a bit of a ladies' man, from what I gathered.
No doubt. He lays out his wardrobe for church. Wardrobe is what I would call it, because he wants to wear Brooks Brothers clothes. He wants to wear a tie or a bow tie. So he's somebody who likes to dress up, and it's starting to attract the ladies.
So where did where do we get that sort of type of lifestyle from? Obviously not you, because I've seen the way you dress and you're put together. So obviously this comes from the wife's side of the family.
It must. It may come from the culture of the church. It may come from several things, but he's very into looking his best. And I didn't start caring about that stuff till much later. So it's just kind of fascinating to watch.
So you're saying he picked up a date at church from the other day? I mean, how did that all work out?
It was at the church. It was at the store. We were at the store, and some older lady, a little bit older than me, actually came up and asked him out on a date because he looked so handsome. And I was just wondering where were these women when I was young? Seeking me out.
Ray's little son, slaying cougars at the age of 3. Yeah, I mean, this is a whole new world that we're living in here. Well, it is the year 2021.
We've read the news reports in schools, haven't we, Joe?
Yes, and I mean, nothing better than a kid that is street smart, because you're not getting any school smarts from the public schools, at least, and even in many private schools these days, from what I'm hearing, based on the agenda that many of these schools are working with and pushing on our young people. And many parents are just swallowing that pill and taking it. But nonetheless, how about from over the weekend? Horrendous news in New York City, obviously, in regards to a shooting at Times Square. And Andrew Yang, formerly of California, now of New York City, running for mayor, he says, we are going to, if I'm elected mayor, I'm going to, create a task force, a unit in the police department of plainclothes officers that are going to work to reduce gun violence and illegal gun ownership in our city. We're going to call on the police to do this. What a novel thought! I mean, the first guy that I've ever heard come up with such an idea in our society.
Yeah, I don't know in terms of just trying to create task force. One of the big problems with the rise in crime now has been the woke sentencing laws, woke prosecutors now that are making an agenda out of crime and letting people off in many cases for violent crimes that we've seen in reports across the country. So, yeah, you can tinker with ways to try to remove firearms from the street, but I think the lesson from the 1990s, Joe, we had a big surge in crime in the really up to 1994 until they had the crime bill. And what stopped it, honestly, was, and I know this doesn't make a lot of conservatives who are for, their own kind of woke sentencing reforms, but what really occurred was tougher sentencing laws, harsher sentencing laws that put violent offenders behind bars, and many times for life. So that's one way to dramatically improve crime. So one of the concerns I have, because we are seeing a surge in crime in many cases, in many places across the U.S., is that we're going to use these social justice measures and initiatives, woke sentencing laws, to let people out of prison or to be lenient, and that's going to create massive crime. And then you've got the policing issue, where police departments feel like maybe they're being neutered to some extent, and that's obviously not going to help the crime wave and surge in crime at all either.
I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here, Ray. Our country has experienced, tumultuous times before, and we've been through turmoil. We have seen our cities burn and, become crime-infested, urbanized areas, and there were ways out of it. So it's amazing that we just don't go back to some of those ways of life and policies to help calm some of the fears that people have. To go to Times Square, for instance. I mean, when I was growing up, just outside of that metro area, you did not dare to go into, Times Square unless you were going to look for some seedy, triple X rated, peep show or somewhere of that, or, to get your smack. And that's why you were going into Times Square when I was growing up. And then it got all cleaned up and became like the hub, the center of, the tourist attraction of what is Manhattan, New York. And now we're kind of getting back to the days of old, it appears.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on New York like you, but I mean, I'm a kid, and I remember living in the Northeast, and Mayor Dinkins in New York City was a disaster, right? You had all these soft on crime policies, and Rudy Giuliani came in and cleaned it up. Took a hardline approach. Of course, as a prosecutor, he broke up the mob, did other things too, in terms of just some of the violent crime in New York. Cleaned up the city. He had a whole policy, right, of getting rid of all the graffiti and spray paint, which helped, the broken window effect. You started cleaning up the city, and it started to reduce crime, not just having tough sentencing laws, but also going up and cleaning up the city. And so when you move away from those policies, what happens? You see a huge surge in crime. This always happens in the U.S., and finally, it seems like we have to go kind of through these cycles now where we have to relearn these policies, and it's frustrating because I don't want my kids to die. You don't want your kids to die. You don't want your family members to be threatened by society. We should live in a safe, peaceful, and orderly society. And you're right. I mean, it's nerve-wracking to kind of go into many urban environments today. It's just not. It's not one of the safer things you can do, and that's disappointing because cities offer a lot of cool things to do. But if you're afraid, and I'm not making fun of people who are afraid at all, because I think there's sometimes legitimate concern there, and a lot of cities are struggling to get crime under control and to get really just sort of back to an area where they just have order. And we've seen with the rioting going on for months and months last summer and continuing up in many instances, especially out west, that if you don't get control of this and nip it in the bud, it's going to explode on you.
And you know what I think we should do? We should follow the path of South Carolina. Let's just bring back the firing squad.
Right, I saw that story too. Well, I mean,
So they
joke about that, but to me, it seemed a little more humane. If I was in that situation, I think I would almost prefer that than the lethal injection approach. But the court has ruled in different ways on that.
So apparently, South Carolina can't get their hands on enough, of the legal injection drugs that are used to carry out death sentences. So instead of just trying to find fentanyl on the street at every street corner in our cities in America, they're going to go way of the firing squad. So if you're on death row now, you can either choose. You have a choice, because that was the issue, is that many of the death row inmates were choosing the lethal injection drugs, which there's a shortage of. So they weren't able to carry out the death penalty. And no matter where you stand on it, I just think, hey, they're like, well, we can't find the drugs, so let's just bring back the old firing squad. Let's get a little target practice going. So you got a choice of now, death by electric chair, or get in front of the old firing squad and take a couple to the head and the chest.
Yeah, when I was in high school, Utah still allowed you to choose, and I remember somebody choosing the firing squad. It made national news. So I don't have a problem with letting somebody choose their manner, and that be one of the manners. To me, it just seems a little more humane than the lethal injection. But again, not an expert on that.
Hey, Ray, looking at the census data, New York, California, they're getting ready to lose a congressional seat, and in fact, California reported its first yearly population decline in the history of the state. More than 182,000 people had fled the state of California since the last census. I mean, does this not make the case as to why we need, states' rights and to keep the federal government out of the way in a lot of different instances, and how, once again, going back to the founding of this country, how brilliant the founding fathers were in creating the states and this idea, of federalism, that, we have a vast country. We're going to have borders. We are going to call them states, and we will let these states try out ideas as far as how people are governed. And the states that have good ideas, well, we would hope that you would then take those ideas and implement them in other states, while the inferior ideas go away and never come back again.
So you're exactly right. People are now voting with their feet. We're seeing this, people leaving states because of the policies, the enormous maybe debt that those states have, so they have to raise taxes. I've got family out in Southern California that are very liberal, and they're talking about leaving California. So this is not just people, obviously, who are not in tune maybe to the ideology of the state, but they want out. There's a lot of people in California that want out. Of course, you see this where they're going to states like Montana, even Wyoming to some degree. Colorado's a state that's been turned blue because of a lot of people leaving California. Arizona the same way. There is some data that maybe some of the folks leaving California to Texas tend to be a little bit more conservative. You have a reverse Sun Belt kind of migration going on there, which is fascinating. Kind of a lot of the grandkids or the grandparents that went out to California are returning to maybe Dust Bowl states or states like Texas. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. We should follow the 10th Amendment. We've completely lost the notion. I mean, it's in the Bill of Rights, Joe. It talks about, all the powers not specifically outlined here for the federal government are enumerated to the states, and that's something we should be following. We've completely lost that in our nation, this whole notion of the states' sovereignty, so to speak, and states being allowed to set their own destiny. What has happened, and this is something, with Medicaid expansion even here in North Carolina, there's all these incentives, right, to get states to be beholden to the federal government through appropriations and deficit and debt spending by our federal government, they get the states hooked on them, and they become addicted to the money. And that's one of the problems I think you see now when you don't have states making decisions for their own destiny. They're addicted to federal money, and maybe they're just complete leftist takeover of their. They have one party rule in the state, like you have in California, that has really just decimated the ability to govern, the ability to create a strong business climate, the ability to allow for lower taxes so you and your family can flourish. And when that becomes threatened, people move, and good for them. And people should pick the states that are, a better education model. They have school choice. They have lower taxes. Look at Florida. I mean, the way that Governor DeSantis has responded to this pandemic, there's a lot of people moving to Florida. Heck, they've got people hitting my wife up on LinkedIn from Florida. So, I wish they were hitting me up, but,
Well, I would say that, having met your wife just a couple of times, she's more of a candidate for employment that I would probably seek after rather than you, Ray, as far as qualifications go and just overall ability.
True, yeah, she gets hit up by a lot of recruiters. I'm like, where are my recruiters?
Ray Nothstine with CarolinaJournal.com and the John Locke Foundation with us here this morning. Ray, I had noticed over the weekend that the Atlanta Braves have gone to full capacity. I've been down to Texas. Their ballpark was at full capacity. How in the world do we still have many states that are relatively locked down 15, 16 months into this? It's like we're living in two very different worlds. Those that are still under the order of Faucian religion, and those who have said, you know what, enough's enough, we're going to move forward, and we're going to try and live life and navigate our way through this, no matter how things pan out.
Yeah, we're beating our heads against the wall in this many states, many localities on this issue, and I just, I've kind of taken the position, what was the point of the vaccine? What was the point of the vaccine if we're not going to actually open back up? I mean, it's ridiculous. You try to tell people to get the vaccine, but nothing's going to change. I mean, I still know people. I know somebody who's still terrified to go outside. Somebody's wife was, and he doesn't have any health conditions or anything, petrified to go outside still. I mean, it's insane to me. It's bizarre, and I don't get it. I know you probably explained it to your audience real well, some of the reasonings. The worship of Fauci. We got Fauci dolls on I've seen on social media. People worshiping this guy. And look, whatever you want to say about Trump, I mean, he was right about. He called out Fauci. He called that clown out, man. I mean, the double mask, the hunkering down over summer still. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Go outside, go have fun, get the vaccine if you want it, and enjoy life. I mean, we need to move on from just sort of the perpetual fear. The perpetual fear that in many cases the government is playing up, and the media is playing up so that you'll be a slave, to being told what to do, to how to live your life, that you'll be dependent on government. Those are not the good policies that have made this country great. Those aren't the policies that will help you provide and flourish for your family. So I would just say act like everything's opened up, because I feel like it should be.
Well, and here in North Carolina, of course, there are still some mandates in place and some limits that remain. And that may be coming to an end sooner rather than later, because, Ray, we have seen throughout the course of the last several months that when there's litigation or legislation moving its way through either the courts or the General Assembly challenging some of the executive orders, only then does the governor then lift many of these mandates or loosen the restrictions further. Well, according to your publication at CarolinaJournal.com, a new lawsuit has been filed that would end Governor Cooper's ability to issue executive orders linked to the pandemic, contending that there is no longer a state of emergency because of COVID, and that we need to move forward, loosen these restrictions, lift them up in its entirety, and also lift the mask requirements that are in place as well. This is a new lawsuit that was filed in Carteret County last week that would end the governor's ability to issue executive orders linked to the pandemic. So with that said, if history tells us anything, we may be seeing some of these EOs come to an end sooner rather than later here in North Carolina.
Yeah, you're right. The governor often responds by being threatened by lawsuits, and he's done that with gyms and other issues. I mean, other bars to some degree. So we'll see. I mean, it's definitely a positive that people are pushing back. People are fighting back for this state to be fully open. I mean, it's insane that we're so behind many other states in the Southeast. To me, I mean, we don't see a spike. You've got stadiums filled in states to our south, and no problems. No mass outbreaks that were predicted, the wringing of hands and clenching of teeth, that people were going to be dying in the streets. The vaccine's available, so if you're afraid, you can get a vaccine. And, time to move forward. And that's one of the things I think, you talked about before I was on the show this morning. You talked about the importance of employment incentives and what's happening in states like Montana opting out. It's time for people to get back to work, too. I mean, that's when we're creating incentives, you probably know people like this, but I know a couple of small businesses in this area that they can't hire any help because the unemployment's been extended. There's a federal bonus. People don't want to work. And, I'm not saying I blame them, so to speak. Sometimes perverse incentives cause people to do things that maybe they shouldn't do, but ultimately it's good for them. They get paid more, a little bit more, and they don't work. And when you're doing that, you're not helping the economy, and you're creating a dependency that's dangerous. And, there's so many policies under this current administration where they're creating dangerous incentives, and they're creating dependency that ultimately could cripple this nation.
And some would say, that is their full intent, is to create another class of dependency in our country, up and down our society, by decentivizing work and the efforts to support oneself and their family. And if they're able to do that without having to, put the 40-plus hours of work in each week, I mean, obviously, we have millions of people who are deciding that, that way works for them. And that's what happens when we incentivize, unemployment in our country the way we are here under this current administration. Ray, thanks so much for the time, my friend. I hope you have a great week. I'm looking for, maybe an outfit that you can get into that would attract the ladies like your son does, or is it just the cute little 3-year-old that does it along with the seersucker suit? It's paired well together.
It is. He's got very tan olive skin and blonde hair and brown eyes, and I think there's a lot of women out there that like that. So it's the youth, I'm sure. I'm an old man now, slightly overweight, and he's skinny and athletic, hits the baseball better than me now. So, some people are gifted that way, I guess.
I think we need to get, maybe a segment with him in the not-so-distant future, on how to pick up the ladies at 3, getting numbers.
A lot of young college guys probably need that today, right?
Ray, thanks so much, brother.
All right, appreciate it.
That's Ray Nothstine with CarolinaJournal.com and the John Locke Foundation. They do great work following all sorts of issues related to news and politics across the Old North State, from the mountains to the coast, legislative issues up in Raleigh at CarolinaJournal.com. That's CarolinaJournal.com. Ray joins us every Monday just after 8 o'clock.
Does it seem like you're visiting the bathroom too much? If you're a man who's constantly going to pee, try Super Beta Prostate. It's the best-selling prostate supplement in America because its ingredient helps reduce urges to pee. That means less bathroom visits and less waking at night with urges to go. Due to overwhelming demand, Super Beta Prostate is flying off the shelves at Walmart. Be sure to get your supply before it's all gone. Get to Walmart and try Super Beta Prostate.
Hey, Bill O'Reilly, and I'm here to tell you about a dramatic new book in my Killing series. It's called Killing the Mob. Now, the mob traces the brutal history of the fight against organized crime in America. From John Dillinger to Bonnie and Clyde, Al Capone to Bobby Kennedy. The real history of these iconic figures is more riveting than any fiction. So please read Killing the Mob. You can get it now wherever books are sold.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst. Anopheles inculeata mosquito. Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control. That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal. Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit bugnopestcontrol.com. Take back your yard.
As we hit the bottom of the hour news break, so mix in the terrible employment report from Friday, revising the month of March, dropping 20,000 jobs off of that initial report from March, accompanied with a complete disaster in April as the experts predicted 1 million jobs back on the books in April. Well, that was missed by 800 or so thousand. 266,000 jobs created in the month of April. So I think more taxes, regulation, and an extension of unemployment benefits might do the trick as to how we can get the economy moving forward. I think a couple more $1 trillion. We'll call it infrastructure spending. We'll call it the American Jobs Plan. Can't be against Americans and jobs and families. Also, as everything continues to go up, the cost of doing business, no matter what industry you're in, well, you will soon be paying more at the pump after the largest U.S. gas pipeline halted its operations on Friday after it discovered it was targeted in a cyber attack. The pipeline provides about 45% of the fuel supply along the East Coast and southern U.S. The Colonial Pipeline was the victim of a cybersecurity attack, and in response, they took certain systems offline to contain the threat, which had temporarily halted all pipeline operations. The largest gasoline and diesel pipeline in the U.S. It transports 2.5 million barrels of gas, diesel, jet fuel, and other refined products every day, about 45% of the East Coast fuel supply. Moves fuel from the Gulf Coast refineries to populous areas along the eastern and southern U.S. So we'll likely be paying more at the pump and for everything else in the not-so-distant future due to that shutdown on Friday. And we talk about infrastructure, protecting infrastructure, well, maybe investing in certain security systems over the intraweb might, in fact, be worthwhile in examining. Instead, we're going to go with new Green Deal policies, straying away, of course, from traditional modes of resources to keep our country moving. But I guess this may be part of the 20-year investment that I'm being told we need to get behind and stop being selfish. As one troll put it to me the other day when we talked about how the American Jobs Plan not necessarily going to live up to its bill when it's all said and done, should it move forward. We've highlighted story after story, economist after economist, telling us that the American Jobs Plan, while the Biden administration tells us it's investing in our kids, our families, and our economic future, that's the claim being made by the commander-in-chief, all in the while many people who analyze these sorts of massive proposals laid out by the government say that, well, what we see is lower economic growth, fewer hours worked, and declining investment into our country. But hey, it says American Family Plan, so it has to be good, right? 25 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker FM.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. Investigations continue into several weekend shootings across the country. A gunman in Colorado opened fire during a birthday party early Sunday morning, leaving behind a horrific scene with more than a half dozen dead inside a mobile home. And in the heart of Times Square on Saturday afternoon, gunfire erupted, wounding 3 innocent bystanders, including a child. As people are getting vaccinated and resuming their normal activities, the American Red Cross is reminding people that there is still a need for blood donations. They say healthy individuals are encouraged to make a blood donation appointment now. If you've had your COVID-19 vaccine, as long as you're symptom-free, feeling well, and can provide your vaccine maker's name, there is no waiting period. Repaving will begin on a major road in Bladen County today. According to the North Carolina Department of Transportation, crews will be working on about 9 miles of Highway 242 between Baldwin Branch Church Road and where 242 meets 130 and 410 in Bladenboro. The work begins this morning and will take 90 days. Drivers should expect delays of about 15 minutes in the work zone. The Wilmington Sharks will be hosting their first hiring event this evening to fill a number of game day operations positions for the 2021 season. If you're interested, head over to Hampton Inn Medical Park at 2320 South 17th Street from 5 until 7 o'clock this evening. There will be another hiring event on Wednesday. And Rory McIlroy is a winner again after 18 long months, and he picked the perfect place at Quail Hollow in Charlotte. McIlroy closed with a 68 for a one-shot victory in the Wells Fargo Championship. It was his third victory at Quail Hollow and the 19th of his career on the PGA Tour. Abraham Ancer closed with a 66 and was runner-up. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, we're going to see another warm and breezy one out there across the Cape Fear. Temperature-wise, we'll top off in the low to middle 80s, similar to our Sunday. We're also going to be dealing with winds out of the south-southwest, anywhere between 15 to 20 miles per hour under partly to mostly cloudy skies. And we do have a chance for some showers and isolated thunderstorms to develop late this evening as we get towards sunset. That cold front's going to move through our region. And behind it tonight, temperatures dropping down into the lower 60s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
All right, as we move into the second half of our show, our call-in number is 910-299-7535. We've got a few housekeeping items this week, as we'll be back out on the road Thursday and Friday. Thursday's show, it appears, will come to you from Macon, Georgia, and then we will be in Mobile, Alabama on Friday, a Freedom Friday from the Gulf Coast, as we head down the stretch of the college baseball season. So once again, the year of COVID strikes again this week. So tomorrow, after the show, need to ride down to Conway, get the Q-tip stuck up my nostril. So long as we're cleared for any COVID on the team, we then head to Charleston that day, or rather Wednesday. We jump on the bus. So Tuesday down, back up. Wednesday down. Jump on the bus, an hour and a half from Conway to Charleston in the Low Country. We play a game Wednesday night. After the game Wednesday night, jump back on the bus, drive halfway to Mobile. Looks like Macon, Georgia is going to be that destination. We'll catch a couple of Z's. We'll do the radio show. We'll jump back on the bus, go to Mobile for a 3-game series. And then on Monday of next week, our friend Chad Adams will be with us, because I'll be on the bus back to Conway. And I don't know, I think we're going to arrive around 4 in the morning, Monday morning. And I don't want to cut it too close where I'm not here on Monday morning. So Chad's going to fill in a week from today. So Grandpa Joe and Dr. Jill, Grandpa Joe and Dr. Jill heard firsthand from school-aged kids last week on the joys of virtual learning as they made a stop inside a 5th-grade classroom in the state of Virginia. And get this, students told our commander-in-chief that, well, virtual learning over the course of the past year gave them a chance to eat, take naps, and even fake technical glitches in order to avoid answering questions. So who would have thought kids would be kids if given the opportunity to skate on their schoolwork? The school, Yorktown Elementary, is now open 4 days per week, with students attending Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Amazing just how different the world is depending on where you are. And heck, in the country to our north, don't know if you caught word, well, they've shut down basketball courts. They won't allow our friend David Clement on the Consumer Choice Radio Show to go out and swing the wrenches. And no golf allowed in Canada. And in fact, remember that pastor from Alberta that went viral a few weeks back when they tried to bust up his Easter worship services at his church? And he made this viral video calling them the Gestapo and the Nazis are coming. I'm a pastor from Poland. I lived under the Iron Curtain. I know what communism looks like, and it's here. Well, that man has been arrested, by the way, after Canadian police stopped him on his ride back from church and arrested him in the middle of the street for inciting people to go to church. One student told the commander-in-chief that if we're really tired, we could take a little nap. Well, that didn't differ much then from Mr. Gozik's literature class in high school that I had to take. In fact, there was one class because we started to experiment with what is known now as block scheduling while I was in high school. So just to prepare you for college, we're going to make you sit through an extra 45 minutes of literature class. First 45 minutes you weren't paying attention to, but let's put you in for another 45. And I'm sure you'll gather all sorts of knowledge and information because of the joint classes now to get you prepared for college. And there were a few times where I would wake up with just a puddle of drool on the desk with Mr. Gozik sitting in the desk in front of me, flicking my ear. But nonetheless, kids today, they could take a little nap in their own bed if they like, and not the comforts of, the desk at school. You could take a little nap, one student told the President of the United States. Well, he and Dr. Jill visited a 5th grade classroom at Yorktown Elementary last week. Another student told him, well, sometimes when Miss B was paying attention to someone else, I went and snuck a snack. And heck, if I didn't know the question, I just pretended like my microphone didn't work. Shut the whole computer down. Sorry, didn't get it. Students, of course, relegated in many states to virtual learning for much of the pandemic, fell behind academically the past year. The percentage of students with 2 or more F marks, for example, increased 83% in the first quarter of the school year. A separate survey found that parents of children who learned virtually reported worse outcomes for their kids on stress and well-being indicators compared to kids who went to school for in-person instruction. And now we're finding out what 3 million kids dropped out over the last year as evidence continues to pour in showing that, well, the teachers' unions, particularly in our biggest cities, worked with the CDC to keep schools shut down. And for the teachers' unions pushing, of course, an agenda that had nothing to do with the science of the pandemic. Their actions resulted in mental health issues, unsafe environments for at-risk kids, and the loss of income for families. But they are there for the betterment of our school system, right? Or something like that. These backroom dealings between a powerful government agency and a powerful public sector labor union should be concerning to all of you, because you are the ones paying the price. CDC, as you know, is preparing to release school reopening guidelines in February. But after a meeting with the American Federation of Teachers, well, the CDC backpedaled and revised their guidelines about in-person instruction, opting to use the wording that was provided by the teachers' union. Of course, the teachers were then bumped to the front of the line because if you don't get jabbed, you can't get back to school, right? Well, even still, the teachers' unions lobbied the CDC to include wording that would discourage in-person instruction. As of April 19th, only 47% of U.S. public school districts were open for full-time in-person learning. And research over the past year has shown that the teacher union influence, more than any other factor, including transmission rates of the virus, determined whether or not a school district reopened for in-person learning. Brown University researchers have reached a conclusion. Contrary to the conventional understanding of school districts as localized and nonpartisan actors, we find evidence that politics, far more than science, shaped school district decision-making. And who are these people supporting? Well, you know exactly who they support. According to an organization known as Education Next, the nation's top 2 teacher unions have been among the leading financial contributors to national elections since 1990. Connected to the Democrat Party and its platform. Since 1990, these teacher unions have forged an alliance with the Democrat Party, which receives the vast majority of their hard money campaign contributions as well as in-kind contributions for get-out-the-vote operations. Teacher union members comprise of 10% of the delegates at the Democrat National Convention, the largest single organizational bloc of Democrat Party activists. These people don't have your best interests in mind, folks. And if this year hasn't shown you that, I don't know what will. We're 10 minutes in front of the hour. Hannah Cox of the Foundation for Economic Education going to join us after the news break. Host of the podcast known as Based, Donna Gregory with WWAY, also set to join us in that third and final hour of our program.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a Signal Fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
This is Radio Free Dixie. Diversity is a buzzword today, but little is known about the truly diverse nature of the Confederate States of America. The Sons of Confederate Veterans want you to know about the religious diversity in the Old South. Many people think of Dixie as a society based on the Protestant religion. Yet, during the War for Southern Independence, the South's first two heroes, General Beauregard and Admiral Sims, were Roman Catholics, and the Confederate Secretary of State was Jewish. Within the Confederate Army, chaplains of various faiths worked with soldiers of various faiths. The Sons of Confederate Veterans invite you to learn the truth about your Southern heritage and join with us to make Dixie great again. Please visit us at makedixie.greatagain.org. That's makedixie.greatagain.org.
Mike check, Mike check. It's Yael Osowski here, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. You'll hear me every Friday at 9:30 on the Mornings with Joe Catenacci show, giving you the latest in consumer news, analysis, and political topics to make sure you get your consumer fix. Then hear me and my radio partner in crime, David Clement, on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, Saturdays at 10. Only here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Portions of our program each morning are brought to you by the science, the data, and yes, the experts. Along with our good friends at Bugno Pest Control. My buddy Dennis and his son DJ run a family locally owned and operated business for 20 years and put Bugno's 20 years of experience to work for you. Rated the #1 pest control company in Wilmington by Home Advisor for 3 years straight. In fact, DJ just came by the house last week. They do it twice a month over at my crib. Not only their pest control formula, but with the weather warming up, starting to see those pesky mosquitoes out there. Their mosquito control formula during the warm summer months keeps your yard mosquito-free. Nice and comfortable for you to sit out in the backyard on a nice night like it was one evening ago. We were grilling up some USDA prime beef for Mother's Day, along with some little chicken drumlets that my wife likes. And we were hanging out 8 o'clock last night, enjoying the beautiful weather. Pest-free, mosquito-free, thanks to the boys over at Bugno Pest Control, the #1 pest control company in Wilmington by Home Advisor for 3 years in a row. Call Bugno at 910-367-2501. That's 910-367-2501. BugnoPestControl.com. That's BUGNO pestcontrol.com. So I know we highlighted this a few times here this morning already, but Friday the Labor Department released their jobs report. What a disaster! It's terrible. Talking about downward trends, folks sitting at home because they've got an extra $300 supplement each week thanks to the federal government. Some states breaking away from that, opting now to push a bonus program for employment. In the state of Montana, for instance, you have a job for 4 weeks, you're going to get a $1,200 bonus. Remember, not too long ago, I think we're old enough to remember, when the government did not have to do these sorts of things to incentivize people to get into work. In fact, it was the companies themselves, after the government stepped back and reduced tax rates, it was those private industries that were actually handing out bonuses to their employees. Now we've got the government doing the work of what many private industries were doing when the government was getting out of the way. And again, it just irks me. Over 4 years, despite the noise and whatever, the tweets, the ego, looking at the substance, what we saw in reality, lowest unemployment rate on record for various demographics. How many times during the Trump administration did we hear these monthly reports highlight the fact that the economy was outperforming what the experts had predicted? And here we are 5 months into this new administration, massive government spending already through a hyper-partisan COVID relief bill. We've got another $2 trillion on the table through the quote-unquote American Families Plan. Tax increases on the horizon. More regulation on business. Unemployment benefits extended to keep incentives down for people to get back into the workforce. The agenda is clear 5 months in. Expecting well north of 1 million new jobs last month. Even the folks at CNBC had a tough time coming to grips with the fact that they were going to have to report what the Labor Department had unveiled on Friday. I mean, listen in.
Steve, because he's got the number. Okay, good, 1.08. Steve, the number.
Wow, it just came across. Give me a second here. We have the number here. Just came across. Sorry about that. It came across very quickly here. It looks like 266,000. It looks like it was a big disappointment at 266, but maybe I have that wrong. Let me double check the Bureau website here. 1 second. Yes, 266 is correct. Unemployment change, little change to 6.1%. So we have some issues here.
266,000.
Long-term unemployed.
Big revision.
Yes, that's what I'm.
Last month, 770 versus 916. Yes, minus 78,000 on the revision. If we look at manufacturing, change in private payrolls, it was only 218,000. Manufacturing minus 18,000. The unemployment rate went up to 6.1.
As compared to what we heard month after month over 4 years where the economy was outperforming the experts' predictions, now we are underperforming, and even jobs reports from months ago being revised downward. Something that, again, the opposite would be in place throughout the course of 4 years where everything was revised upward. for months on end. Even the analysts and the news anchors on national news outlets couldn't believe it. Welcome to the Biden economy. And of course, the response to this will be, well, we've got to reimagine what our economy looks like. And we can only do that by spending trillions of more dollars from the federal government. But I guess on a positive note here today, as we stated earlier, at least we no longer have Orange Man Bad to deal with, and we don't have those mean tweets anymore.
Keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
I'm Jeremy House. Two people close to the investigation say the cyber extortion attempt that's forced the shutdown of a vital U.S. pipeline was carried out by a criminal gang known as Darkside. The shutdown, meanwhile, stretched into its third day with the Biden administration loosening regulations for the transport of petroleum products on highways. Police say a gunman walked into a birthday party with children in a mobile home park in Colorado Springs, Colorado yesterday and killed 6 people before taking his own life.
Colorado Springs Police Chief Vince Niski said in a statement, "My heart breaks for the families who have lost someone they love and for the children who have lost their parents." And Governor Jared Polis said in a statement how devastating the shooting was on Mother's Day, especially as many of us are spending the day celebrating the women in our lives who have made us the people we are.
Correspondent Julie Walker reporting. President Biden's top medical advisor says the more Americans get vaccinated, the faster we can resume normal activities.
Infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci said if tens of millions more Americans get vaccinated, the coronavirus situation will be dramatically improved. In TV interviews, he said if an overwhelming proportion of the population is vaccinated, then the virus doesn't really have any place to go. Fauci also doesn't foresee a repeat of the surge in COVID-19 cases that the U.S. experienced in the fall and winter. Fauci made his comments on ABC's This Week and NBC's Meet the Press. Greg Clugston, the White House.
President Biden will join a meeting by video link of presidents of countries on NATO's eastern flank being held today in the Romanian capital. The meeting of the 9 comes ahead of a NATO summit taking place June 14th in Brussels. Global shares are mixed today after a disappointing U.S. jobs report signaled to investors that interest rates will likely stay low. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Mounds and mounds of fur. Our hairballs have hairballs.
Marquette Mama, she's 10 years old. She has dandruff and an oily coat.
I have 2 cats, Zippy and Daisy. Daisy sheds like crazy.
If you love your pets as much as I do, you want to do what's best for them to live long, healthy, happy lives.
DINOVITE.com. I just tried this wonderful Catalicious Dynavite for cats, and my cat has been on it for 2 weeks. She is not scratching anymore. She's not chewing anymore. It is just the best.
I was thrilled when I heard Dynavite for cats was coming out because I'd seen the changes in my dog. To introduce my cat to Dynavite, I took the advice from Dynavite and put their food on top of just a scoop in the bowl, just to get them used to it, because I know if I even switch one little thing, they put their nose up to it. There was not one problem.
Dynavite for life. You won't believe how happy your cat will be.
DINOVITE.com.
The death toll soared to 50 in a school bombing in Afghanistan's capital.
As well as the horrific number of deaths. Those wounded in Saturday's attack, which took place in a mostly Shiite neighborhood, has also climbed to more than 100. 3 explosions outside the school entrance struck as students were leaving for the day, with the first explosion coming from a vehicle packed with explosives. In a capital rattled by relentless bombings, Saturday's attack was among the worst. Criticism has mounted over a lack of security and growing fears of even more violence as the US and NATO complete a withdrawal. I'm Charles Dilladesma.
The first-named storm of the eastern Pacific hurricane system is moving off the southwestern coast of Mexico, though forecasters don't expect it to pose any threat to land. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says Tropical Storm Andres is expected to stay well out to sea. News and analysis at townhall.com. Fuel price analyst Trilby Lundberg says a combination of factors have pushed gasoline prices to a nationwide average of $3.02 per gallon for regular grade.
In addition to strong crude oil prices, corn prices are even higher than they were, and so is the price of ethanol, its derivative. And this is mandated inside the price of gasoline via the sales mandate for ethanol. Also, the far weaker U.S. dollar.
The highest average price in the nation right now is $4.16 a gallon in the San Francisco Bay Area. The lowest average is $2.55 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Israeli police firing tear gas, stun grenades, and rubber bullets have clashed with Palestinian stone throwers at a Flashpoint Jerusalem religious site. It was the latest in a series of confrontations that threatened to push the contested city toward wider conflict. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Moving into our third and final hour of this program on a Monday edition of the show. The year is 2021. It's hard to believe, given the ideas that we hear from our leaders on almost a daily basis as far as how their ideas will improve the life and livelihoods of you, your families, and friends all around this great nation. You can find us at BigTalkerFM.com. Of course, our live audio stream is available through our website on our mobile app, which you can find in the Apple iStore for your iPhone and the Google Play Store for your Android. Just search Big Talker 106.7 FM. Video portion of the program up this morning on YouTube and, of course, through our Facebook page. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. Hannah Cox is with us here this morning on a Monday, no less, just after 9 o'clock. Hannah, it's a pleasure as always. It's great to hear from you again. I hope you had a great weekend.
Good to be with you, Joe. We had a great Mother's Day weekend here. How about you?
Oh, there's no question about it. We enjoyed the weekend. We were out and about, went down to the freedom-loving state of South Carolina, back to the People's Republic of North Carolina here this morning. I mean, it's amazing to me still just how different life can be depending on where you live here in this country.
Well, I've been very blessed to spend the past year in South Carolina. And actually, I saw my flashback photos from Facebook. It's been a year this week, and I've really enjoyed being in a red state that has had so few COVID lockdowns or government heavy-handedness during this whole ordeal. It's been great. But I'm getting ready to move to Georgia, so I don't know if I'll have the same experience moving forward. You're going to have to wish me luck.
Well, they are, they've been open for quite some time. It's amazing. We're going to the point now where it's almost been, a year in some places, like in Florida, like in Georgia, where they started to, lift up some of the restrictions, and all the doomsday type of scenarios just hadn't played out the way, many predicted they would.
That's right. I remember, I spent March and April locked down in my little studio apartment in New York City in the middle of Manhattan, hoping that it would, just be a couple weeks and everything would start to go back. But it didn't happen, and that's when I got out, was last May. And so it's pretty crazy to think back that it's been a whole, year plus at this point that we've been dealing with this. It feels it feels like it went by very fast in some ways. It's hard to believe we're already halfway almost through 2021. But on the other hand, this is a very long period of time for a lot of people who've been having to suffer under the government's policies. We just saw a judge revoked the CDC's order saying that people couldn't be evicted from their homes, and that's a great stand for property rights that we finally saw come down the pipeline. But that means we've had 14 months of people not being able to pay their bills, not being able to evict tenants who weren't paying their bills, and real financial trouble piling up. We've had 14 months of businesses being shut down. And now we're still dealing with the repercussions, and will be for many years, of course, from these decisions. We're increasingly seeing that even as businesses are allowed to open back up, they cannot find workers to come and actually fill those jobs. The jobs report this month out of the Biden administration was just heinous. It was awful. They had predicted over 1 million new jobs added, I think, and it ultimately was under 250,000. So we're in pretty dire conditions. We continue to see shortages that are piling up across a multitude of industries. We have prices that are skyrocketing. There's a lot of inflation going on, and unfortunately, the administration in place, their response is to spend more money and to keep printing more money, which will, of course, just make the situation even more dire. So I think that while it's been a long 14 months and there's been a lot of terrible things that have happened, we will be paying the price for this time period for probably a decade in this country and globally, because it's happened in many other places as well.
And finally, the national news media, in large part, finally getting around to some of these stories. Over the last 3 weeks, I've picked up headlines that, in reality, folks like yourself joining me on this program, some of the work that you do over at the Foundation for Economic Education, FEEF.org. And we've been highlighting these stories for months on end. And I mean, it's good, better late than never, I guess. But as it relates to the school reopenings or the rise in prices for materials. We talk a lot with our friends in the construction industry. Also, if anyone's gone to a grocery store as of late, you've seen, as you said, the prices skyrocketing for basic necessities like protein and fruits and vegetables. Mix that all in with the school closings, the rise in prices, and the fact that our government continues to incentivize people not working. It's a recipe for the disaster. Also, another report: undiagnosed, cancer patients, now, further along in their, battle with, of a disease that could in fact be cured in some cases. When we talk about breast cancer or colorectal cancer, if they just got that early detection, and a very treatable disease, if in fact it is detected early, all these sorts of things. And in large part, we look to our government as the reasons why we're dealing with many of these situations today.
That's right. And, we tend to call these things unintended consequences. And that's one thing that libertarians love to point out, and I think it's a valid thing to point out. Anytime government takes a certain action that a policy is created, there are always going to be unintended consequences. And that's something that we have to be able to think, 10 steps ahead and look at what are the ramifications of this policy going to be, what other industries will it impact, how will this have negative side effects that we don't want. And that's why we need a limited government, because so often the unintended consequences end up being more harmful than the actual thing the government policy is trying to cure. And so that's why you saw a lot of libertarians sort of raising the red flag, 14 months ago and saying, listen, this is going to be worse than the disease itself. We're going to see these consequences. This is going to happen. It wasn't hard to predict that we would see things like a drop in cancer screenings, a lack of education for children, especially children from impoverished backgrounds, really being hit hardest by that. All of these things were quite predictable, and yet the government went forward with it, and libertarians were, they said we hated our grandmothers, we didn't care if people died, and all kinds of just really stupid things that were quite hyperbolic, and we were ignored. And so now, we get to play the part of watching our predictions come true like we always do. And it's a very frustrating position to be in, because it seems that the majority of people just absolutely cannot learn from history, cannot learn from the economic mistakes that we've made in the past, and really can't seem to get their head around the fact that you can't build a utopian world. You have to create policies that minimize harm and that don't create more harmful side effects. It's childish to think that government, which is inept, could ever come in and actually prevent a disease from spreading. They cannot. The only thing we could do is empower the free market to come up with cures to that disease and to come up with ways that we could test and trace that disease. That was largely not done. Instead, we saw government get in the way of that at times, and continue to hinder that in many aspects to this day. And we've seen now that many of the policies they subscribe to us were not things that actually in any way helped. The lockdowns did not prevent one person from dying. They did not prevent this disease from spreading, but they have created a multitude of really terrible side effects. And we also saw that there were a lot of people in government who are benefiting from those decisions. You know, the teachers unions, I think everybody should have paid a lot of attention to public sector unions over the past year, because boy, have they played a prominent part in this. You know, we saw the teachers unions really start to hold families and their tax dollars hostage and try to use this pandemic as a way to push through all kinds of unrelated policies that they've wanted for some time, very left-wing issues, things like Medicare for all, things like universal basic income, things like universal daycare. You know, they really were trying to use this to their advantage, and they were successful in many blue states at keeping the schools shut down for non-scientific reasons, and those kids have had all kinds of really bad ramifications from that. We've seen mental health issues skyrocket. We've seen that they've lost serious developmental time in their education. We see that there's been a lot of issues with loneliness. And then, of course, you know, we have the still uncalculated toll of increases in domestic abuse and neglect and other issues where we don't really know what's happening. We've had a lot of kids fall out of the system. I'd like to think that some of those are kids who are, you know, now being homeschooled or something of that nature, but the reality is probably there's a lot of neglect represented in those numbers, and children that have not been able to get food or not been able to get basic care during this time. And so I think people really need to start pointing their fingers at the teachers unions and asking why the government is able to hold our tax dollars hostage in that way. We ought to be funding the families themselves and let them take those tax dollars to the school that will actually provide them with education. You know, we saw the same thing with police unions and other public sector unions that has basically been trying to prevent really needed and demanded criminal justice reforms that we've seen people rise up in demand over the past year. So that's been another really dire side effect. And even right now, as we're dealing with, you know, a pretty serious economic issue where we can't find workers, and the economy is going to start to lag because of that, we see the Biden administration pushing the PRO Act, which is something that will actually restrict independent contracting, which would hurt 45 to 50 million workers in this country, take away their options, force them into antiquated 9-to-5 schedules, remove economic opportunity, and continue to take away you know, job options and work options for the American people. It's just totally asinine what they're doing. It's pretty unbelievable. And so we continue to see a lot of these decisions being doubled down on instead of going the other way. So they aren't learning their lessons.
Well, with that said, and having caught your latest podcast based just a little while ago, in fact, it does go into the conversation surrounding public unions and how you're not necessarily against the idea of unions. It's the command that they have over their members that really bring up a red flag for you. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with collective bargaining. If we're just talking about groups of workers getting together and using the power and numbers to negotiate, fantastic. That's a free market response in the workplace that I think could produce better results for workers. And we have seen that happen historically, and we've seen that especially happen in other countries. But in the U.S., for well over a century, we've seen unions instead concern themselves predominantly with getting involved in the political spectrum and using government to actually empower themselves and to enrich themselves and to force workers and employers into these situations. And so that's the problem, is when you use government force and you take away the element of choice and you start using coercion in the process. And that's what we've seen unions largely do in this country as we have started to fight back against that beginning in the 1950s and spreading since then. We now have 27 states where workers cannot be forced to join a union any longer. They could be for some time in this country. And since that time, we've seen that when they're not forced to, the majority of workers choose not to. At any time, people can choose to join a union in this country no matter where they live. But we see the lowest numbers in history have chosen to do that because ultimately, I think the majority of people see that they don't get a benefit from that they do have their money taken and given to causes that they often disagree with, because unions are very much in bed with progressive politics. And so they're often funding things that the average worker doesn't want their money going towards. And ultimately, we see that there's a lot of administrative bloat and that really the unions get rich and the workers' conditions don't improve that much. So as a whole, that's the problem I have with unions, and I think that's the problem the majority of the country is increasingly showing they have with unions. But my real issue is public sector unions. I think that we could find a way to remove government from the equation in the private sector and get back to a free market unionization type approach, and that would be okay in my book. But I think when it comes to public sector unions, they should always not be allowed, because essentially public sector unions is the government taking your tax dollars and using it to lobby against you. When you have teachers unions or police unions, that's your money that they're then using to work against policies that would help the American people that most Americans probably want. And they're working to get themselves higher pay. That's more of your tax dollars. They're working to get themselves a lot more liberties at your expense. And so, the government should not have collective bargaining, because ultimately it's just using the tax dollars against the taxpayers. And it's a very corrupt institution that we didn't even have allowed in this country until Kennedy pushed an executive order in the 1960s. So that needs to be revoked, and those should be done away with entirely. And then when it comes to unions in the private front, again, we need to remove government from the equation. There should never be government force behind unionization or coercion. If people want to choose to form those kinds of unions, that's great, but it should be a choice between the workers and the employers. And so that's the big picture issue. But on a smaller scale, looking at where we're at right now, because people have increasingly turned away from unions, and because they only have about 6 million people in their ranks in the private sector as of right now, we see a huge unionization push under the Biden administration, where the Biden administration wants those dollars from the unions, and so do other progressive politicians. And since their membership is down, that means the donation dollars are down as well. And so the Biden administration is working overtime to try to empower unions, to try to start pushing them in other places again. They're looking to try to push the PRO Act, which again would not only restrict independent contracting and push people out of the gig economy and out of these contract type jobs, but also would revoke right to work states and basically make it where people could be forced to join a union again. So it's very corrupt. It's something I'm pretty angry about, because I am somebody who often holds independent contracts, and that's something that I make a good bit of money from, and that's something that has really helped me as a young single woman in my career to be able to first, switch out of the music industry into politics a number of years ago. When I wanted to do that, I did it by taking on independent contracts and building my network, building my experience, building my contacts, and then ultimately moving over into politics full time. It's something I've continued to do to help pay my bills, to help pay down debt, and to be financially responsible. Independent contracting is an amazing thing. I represent a lot of women who like to take independent contracts because it provides them with flexibility and a better quality of life. We see many people in this country feel that way, and it's a good thing for the workers to get away from that 9-to-5 desk job. We see a lot more choice entering the market and a lot more flexibility, and that gives workers a lot of empowerment. But who it hurts is the unions, who can't get a piece of that pie when people aren't working in a traditional workforce. And it hurts the left-wing politicians, who, again, the unions predominantly fund. So we're seeing them get pretty desperate in trying to push some of these things at the federal level that are absolutely unconstitutional and that people should be very concerned about.
Yeah, when we talk about the PRO Act, I'm also one of those workers that makes a pretty good portion of my income through independent contracts. Affected massively if this thing were to go forward, in that my employer would probably just figure out a way to work around adding me as an independent contractor, put more of that work on a full-time employee for whatever reasons, and it makes it a great relationship for me, the employee, and the employer. We have much more flexibility. Our responsibilities are laid out very clearly. This is what we need you for. This is not what we want you for, and it makes it in a very comfortable way of life for myself, having chosen that pathway, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years, and to see what it did last year when you shut down that portion of my income. It's like 3/4 of what I make annually. It comes from these independent gigs, and what you're saying here is through this PRO Act, it would all be vanished if, in fact, the Biden administration had their way. You said 6 million people, Hannah, are members of unions right now. We've actually talked with an attorney and a teacher out in California. They've just filed a lawsuit, challenging this rule that even though he's trying to pull himself out of the union based on their agenda, he's not in favor of the way they're going as far as what they're trying to push out in Los Angeles. They're still withdrawing his union dues from his paycheck, even though he no longer wants to be a part of the union. A guy who said who has been a part of teacher strikes for different sorts of things that the union has wanted over years, but over the past 5 or 6 years, they've distanced themselves with his way of life in looking at how schools should be working, and they're still sticking it to him, even though he wants out. They're still withdrawing money from a union that he does not want to belong to. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no surprise there. You know, unions often try to say that they are about pushing workers' choice. And even with the PRO Act, they're saying that. This is about giving workers more choice. This is about making sure they have a choice to join a union. But it's all lies. Workers always have a choice to join a union. What they don't always have a choice to do is leave the union once they're in. It can be very difficult to get out. And you know, we've seen lawsuits that have prevailed over that. We saw that in the public sector not long ago with Mark Janus out of Illinois, and that was a court case that actually originally stemmed out of California with Rebecca Friedrichs, who was a school teacher in California that won it out. And that went all the way to Supreme Court, where basically they did rule in the Janus decision that people could no longer be forced to pay dues to a union when they weren't joining it. Now, he had never joined the union. They had just been taking his money anyways when he joined the workplace. And so there's still a lot of work to be done in actually protecting the choice and independence of workers and employees. But there have been some good decisions and groundwork that have been made in recent decades as well. But unions are very much about themselves, and they don't look out for the average worker. They really are something that has become intertwined with left-wing politics, and we see that especially in places like California, where they are more empowered and they have a lot more connections into the state infrastructure and governments there that continue to uphold them and really give them undue size power and influence in the system. And so it's going to be an ever-growing problem. It's something that, again, you know, we've made good progress on, but I think there are a lot of people who are working to turn that tide back, especially under the current administration. And, you know, when it comes to things like the PRO Act that they're now pushing federally, that came from California. California already tried that last year. It was a state bill they passed that was put into effect around last March, I believe, maybe April. And it had immediate terrible consequences. You know, Vox fired 200 independent freelance journalists. We saw that many musicians and people who did contract type work in the creative industries were put out of work, and it created outcry. And voters actually voted to really carve up that piece of legislation this past fall, overwhelmingly in Prop 22, voting to give a lot of exemptions to different industry workers. And that was something unions fought really hard to try to fight back against. So, you know, even really far left California doesn't like this kind of bill, and yet now it's being pushed federally. So it's something where they are on the attack. They are working overtime to try to get their power back, and the American people need to be on guard, because this is not a situation they want to find themselves in. We've made a lot of gains in our workplace since the 1950s. It looks a lot better than it used to. It's much more diverse. We have a lot more freedom. You know, we now have a lot of workplaces that have even moved to remote work, and given the pandemic, I think that will start to stay in place. That gives workers a lot more flexibility on where they live, what state they have to pay taxes in. That gives them a lot of better quality of life, more time with their family, better scheduling, so that they can, you know, set their work schedule to best reflect their priorities in their life and still get their work done in a way that keeps their employer happy, but where they're not stuck at a desk from 9 to 5. You know, I'm somebody who, when I first graduated college in 2010, I had to work a desk job for a couple of years, and I was miserable. I hated it. I just couldn't stand having to sit there and waste time just to be there, and then having to do work outside of hours because things came up. It created a situation where I felt like I was working all the time and really didn't have good work-life balance. But, you know, for the past 6 or so years, I've really had a lot more of that flexibility in my life. And that's partly, again, due to independent contracting, due to being able to take jobs that maybe pay less because I'm supplementing with independent contracting. And that's something a lot of American workers are leaning into. We see a lot of people that are working to start their own businesses and being entrepreneurs and using independent contracting to supplement that while they're building up. And so we've really moved to a place where workers are getting a better structure for their lives, better ability to control their income and determine how much money they want to make and how much work they want to do. And I would really hate to see us go back to something that looked like the 1950s or 1960s workplaces.
Yeah, I was going to say, you hit on it there just as you wrapped up. You know, workers and people have more control over their own lives, which is a good thing. Hannah, let me ask you real quick, because you breezed by it a moment ago. We spend, or rather lobbyists spend, nearly $1 trillion each year to lobby each other in government. So they're using our money to, of course, push causes that benefit them and not necessarily us.
That's right. That's another piece I touched on recently. You know, this is something that I have been so passionate about in recent decades. And I often have this phenomenon because I'm working at state capitals and I'm working behind the scenes, where I really get to see what the average American person doesn't, because they don't have time to sit up at their state capitol and watch everything go down. They aren't privy to all the backroom deals or negotiations or who's acting in what way. And so there's a lot of problems in our society that people agree on and things that we don't like, but oftentimes I see people assume the wrong causes of those problems, let's say. And taxpayer-funded lobbying is one of them, where I think the average American is really aware of some of the ramifications and harmful problems it creates, but they don't know to trace it back to taxpayer-funded lobbying as the source of the problem. And if you sit at state capitals, what you'll see is, again, the aforementioned, public sector unions who come in and lobby heavily against the American people on their own tax dollar. And that does include people like police unions. Police love to come out and say, we don't write the laws, we just enforce them. Well, that's utter BS. They absolutely do help write the laws. They're up at the state capitals and legislatures, oftentimes working against criminal justice reforms that are popular, that the American people want. They're working against things that would hold them more accountable, that would present more transparency in the industry. They're very much involved in that process, and they very much are involved with creating new laws that give them new power, new authority, and expand the justice system. And so they're that's one form of it, and that's something I've watched very closely because I've been very involved with criminal justice reform in the country. But I've seen it with school choice too. I've seen a lot of teachers and families and children and people from all walks of life that really desperately want school choice. It's a really smart policy that I think people across the political spectrum can agree on. It's pretty simple. It just means giving families their own tax dollars and letting them decide which school they're going to use them towards. Very simple. It presents competition that's much needed in our school system, and yet we see teachers unions, again, publicly funded, working overtime to block those kinds of things at state capitals. But it goes on from there. We also see things like local governments hire lobbyists to go in and lobby state legislatures to get different laws that they want, increase their own power, get more funding at their local level. We see that different kind of commerce boards, things like regulators and licensors come in and they lobby on tax dollars again for more authority, more licenses, more regulations, oftentimes things that are very much crony, that block some people from being able to enter a field, that keep prices artificially high. All of these things ultimately enrich the government and the few connected insiders that are in bed with them at the expense of consumers, at the expense of workers, and at the expense of most people in the economy. We see them come in and work to get corporate welfare and to get more special favors for their industry insiders. And so this is a very, very prevalent practice in our system, and I think it's one thing that if we really wanted to look at ways to restore power to the people and make the average individual's voice matter in this system again, and to actually ensure that our representatives are passing laws that reflect the will of the American people, which is what they're supposed to be doing, instead of crony interest in themselves, we have to ban the practice of taxpayer-funded lobbying. It's impossible really to put a price tag on it. There was the Americans for Prosperity study from, I think, 2007 that said they estimated about $1 trillion a year was spent. I don't think it's even possible to truly say how much is spent, because it takes place in so many different forms. And of course, this isn't anything anyone's reporting or really trying to draw attention to. And so it's something that it's really widespread, and it just takes such a toll on our system. So there is a bill that has been moving through the Texas legislature that would ban it and really pull this back in, but there's still a lot of work to be done. There's many states that have not put any kind of protections in. There's others who have maybe put in some haphazard kind of things to rein this in and restrict it to some degree or another. But it needs to be totally done away with. At the end of the day, no one should be able to lobby the government that is working on the taxpayer's dime.
Hannah Cox with us, host of the podcast, based contributor at the Foundation for Economic Education. Find her work along with her great colleagues over at FEE at FEE.org. That's FEE.org. Hannah, also, you recently unveiled a new website in which people can find your work. Why don't you give yourself a plug here this morning as we wrap it up?
Thanks, I did. I'm very excited about that. I've been wanting to launch a website for some time. It's Hannah D. Cox, so Hannah, Hannah, D as in dog, Cox, COX.com, HannahDcox.com. It's going to have all of my latest links and and content on there, and I'm really excited about it. And we're actually hoping to expand it in the very near future to where it actually will also create a workaround for social media companies that we know are increasingly throttling content. And so we're trying to find free market ways to beat that system. So please give it a look, bookmark it, and help us spread the word.
Hannah Cox with us here this morning. HannahDCox.com, her new website, just unveiled over the course of the last few days. Hannah, you're one of the best in the business. There's no need to go anywhere else to find information and content that you can consume on a day-to-day basis without visiting your website or the folks over at FEE, Foundation for Economic Education. I mean, literally, you get consumed by too much news and too much information. Just tune in when Hannah joins us, and in a half hour, you get everything wrapped up, and then you can go out and enjoy your life.
Well, thanks so much, Joe. It's always good to be with you and appreciate you bringing all the information to your listeners.
And it's great to have you a part of the program as a friend of the show, and good luck in your move from, New York down to South Carolina and down to the state of Georgia here in the next little while. Hannah Cox, great contributor to our program. Literally, you get 25 minutes of her, and that's all you need for the rest of the day. It's Monday. She filled you up with all the information that you need to know for the rest of the day. Go out and enjoy your life, because you either get busy living or you get busy dying. They've done a pretty good job over the past year to try and close us down, put us in a corner, and tell us we're bad boys and girls for not masking up or socially distancing. Despite a new story over at fee.org this week, highlighting the fact that these lockdowns were completely unneeded. 14, 15 days to flatten the curve. Okay, it's something new. We don't necessarily know how things are going to shake out. Every decision that has been made thereafter has seemingly gone against human nature in the ways in which we have operated for many of centuries in this place that we call planet Earth. New study reveals that stay-at-home orders have backfired, and they list all the reasons why over at fee.org, FEE.org. We're 24 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
When you paid off your student loan. Are you still paying for it? Student debt can be crippling, and today it's even more important to keep debt in check. Help your student build a brighter financial future by encouraging them to attend Cape Fear Community College for the first 2 years. CFCC costs thousands less than four-year schools, and classes in our university transfer program are accepted at four-year schools across the state and beyond. Help your kids get a head start academically and financially at CFCC. Learn more at cfcc.edu.
Do you or someone you love suffer from back pain, poor circulation, or struggle to get a good night's sleep? Do you just need help getting into or out of your chair? US Med Express is Wilmington's leading supplier of golden technology lift and sleep chairs, carrying a variety of models in our showroom at 1733 Dawson Street. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at KO's Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
All right, as we round out our final half hour of the show here this morning, our friends at WWAY join us just after 9:30 to give us an update on some of the local news that you may have missed from over the weekend. And joining us here on this Monday morning is Donna Gregory, coming back from the Queen City over a Mother's Day weekend. Donna, I hope you had a great Mother's Day.
It was wonderful.
Did
I have children scattered across the state, and so the two in Charlotte. Husband and wife, my son and his wife, made a fabulous brunch. I was only there about 15 hours. I had to turn around real fast and come back and eat again.
So I guess the question is, did you use the toll road to get here? Because it does take off about 35 minutes from your ride, and you'll get the bill in the mail like in a couple weeks. I mean, it's only like 35 cents a toll.
Yeah, they actually have moved north of the city to Huntersville, a little bit east of Lake Norman. So it shaves off a little bit of time. You discovered that, was it 218 or whatever?
Yeah.
I can't remember what the highway is, but it really does shave off some time.
Donna, when we talk about some of the news here locally, obviously so much doom and gloom these days. Let's start off on a positive note. As a Rocky Point woman celebrated her 100th birthday this weekend. What a difference a year makes. So how did the family honor her this year for her centennial, 100 years?
Isn't that fabulous? Her name is Edith Gray Moore, and she has been looking forward to this birthday for years. And so the lifting of the pandemic restrictions actually was a special gift for her. She's in Pender County, and they had a socially distanced drive-by parade for her 99th birthday last year. But family and friends were able to gather with her and celebrate her birthday at the Riley Creek Baptist Church in Rocky Point, which is her church, and her daughter is named Edith. She says that she was glad that they could actually come together, that her mom has been looking forward to this, talked about this for years and years, and she was very excited to be there. And she actually is the oldest living member of the church as well. Isn't that so sweet?
So sweet, and the fact that they were able to get together and celebrate this year as compared to what we had to do with last year. And I'm sure she has some pretty good stories to share after watching the world go by over 100 years. Oh, my. Could you imagine
what that's just the last 20.
Yeah, could you imagine what life was like for little Edith growing up 100 years ago? I mean, I don't think anyone on the face of the planet right now could compare and contrast life then as compared to today.
Oh, just think about it. No phones, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury.
And you know what? If you asked her, she'd probably prefer it that way than where we're at now.
Oh, man, I'm sure that she has, as you said, stories to tell and opinions about a lot of stuff. And you get to say them when you're 100. Your opinions are right, I think.
No
when you're
doubt.
100. You've earned them.
Having a 93-year-old grandmother, I can tell you, she's allowed to say whatever she wants. And she's been doing that forever anyway. So that's what grandma says goes. There's no questions asked. I'm sure you know a little something about that, huh?
Well, yes, that's what at least I tell my grandson that. Whisper in his ear on a routine basis. I'm always right. I'm always right. And when you think I'm wrong, refer to I'm always right.
Yeah, and enjoy all that candy and sweets, and then I'll hand you back off to mom and dad, and they can take care of you after you're all sugared up from grandma.
Bingo! You got that right.
Donna, let me ask you also, I caught a story this morning during your newscast surrounding work that the organization Habitat for Humanity does here in our area, and it's amazing the stories that you're able to provide us when you get on scene and you talk to the people who are helping construct their own home. Habitat, basically, nonprofit organization that promotes home ownership and people typically from lower socioeconomic statuses get the opportunity to own a home, help build their home, and then have to pay the note on the home. And it never it always puts a smile on my face, and it never disappoints when you hear these people helping as part of building up their home and living the American dream.
No question. We met a woman named Vanessa Godwin, and she is going to be moving into one of the two homes that's under construction by a group of women. This is the fourth time that the Cape Fear Habitat for Humanity has done the Women Build event. And it's just a group of women that raise money to buy the supplies. They each raised $5,000 to buy supplies. There were dozens and dozens of these women. And they're made up of representatives of businesses, churches, social groups. And they actually go out and they hammer in nails and they put up drywall and they roof and they plumb and they are building stronger, safer communities one house at a time. And so Vanessa said she's thrilled to be able to work on the home herself and know where every nail's going. And she's expecting to move in sometime in August. Both homes are expected to be built by then.
And, that just changes the direction of a family tree forever when these types of things, are afforded to people who may never thought that they'd be in a position to own their own home and, raise a family in a structure that they can call their own. It's an incredible story.
She has sons, and they're excited about it as well.
Habitat for Humanity, they do great work. So many great philanthropic organizations around town that, push this message of home ownership. Donna, we know that there are job wanted signs and now hiring signs in basically every storefront of every small business in America. We also have a number of seasonal businesses that ramp up the hiring throughout the course of a year. And later this summer, the Wilmington Sharks will be hosting their annual Summer Collegiate Baseball League over at the Legion Sports Complex. And they are looking for some people as part of part-time positions for the upcoming season. Give us some of the details about their hiring event.
Yeah, there's one today and one Wednesday. And this is the first one of this season. They have a number of game day operations jobs to fill for the season. They want food and beverage, game day operations, hospitality, ushers, ticketing. You can try out for positions if you'd like to be an on-field MC. Joe, that's screaming your name. Promotions team members, alternate mascot performers, that's also screaming your name. If you're interested, it's at the Hampton Inn Medical Park. That's on 17th Street, 5 to 7, and we've got that information on our website if people didn't catch it.
Donna, as I let you go, the American Legion is concerned about proper flag disposal. What are they doing to teach people the proper way to honor a tattered flag?
They had a flag collection event in Leland over the weekend, and they say that any flag, as we all know, can become worn over time, but the Legion says the U.S. flag has very detailed lists of procedures to follow to dispose properly. And so they say there's an easy way to know if it's time to retire your flag. If the flag's pink, if the blue is faded, or if the stars are starting to crumble, time to retire it. Just haul the flag to an event like that. They collect them, and they're going to hold an official flag retirement ceremony with hundreds of flags next month.
Donna Gregory with us from WWAY News. She, alongside Jeff Rivenbark, they join us every Monday just after 9:30, get you an update on some of the local headlines across the area. You can find out more about the stories that we discussed here this morning on their website at WWAYTV3.com. Donna, enjoy the day, and we'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Joe. Have a great day. Bye.
All right, we're 13 minutes in front of the hour. Great to have Donna Gregory with us as part of the program every Monday, just after 9:30, our friends with WWAY across the river over in Brunswick County. If you'd like to call in, our number is 910-299-7535. We'll wrap up the show with your calls after the break.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles and Culex rati mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit BugnoPestControl.com.
Take back your yard.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Acoustic wave therapy at the Frank Institute is a revolutionary treatment for inflammation, issues of blood flow, and is a solution for the constant suffering of chronic pain. Through the localized transmission of sound waves, stem cells are stimulated to bring about restored blood flow, vascular regeneration, and the disbursement of pain receptors to affected areas. If you've been told that your issues could not be treated without surgery or prescription, give us a call. Non-invasive, non-surgical, and prescription-free. Acoustic wave therapy is only available at the Frank Institute. Call today, 910-679-8534, and ask about acoustic wave therapy.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, as we head down the stretch here, just a couple of minutes to go. Tomorrow morning, we'll be talking, of course, with local attorney Tom Goolsby. Former state senator Steve Barger is a school board member in Brunswick County. He'll also join the program, along with Marine Corps veteran Ron Holmes. Ron is a local firearms instructor, and he has an event coming up this weekend that he wants to share with you. Ron will be with us in the third hour of our program tomorrow. 910-299-7535 is our number. And caller, you're with us this morning. I hope you had a great weekend.
I did, Joe. This is Fish from Carolina Beach.
Hey, Freddie the Fish, how we doing this morning?
All right, another great show. I really appreciate it. And you could really have some great guests on there, particularly Hannah. Which I was listening to earlier, but for some reason I didn't. It was kind of garbled, and I couldn't get her new. Is it a Substack or is it a website or what is it she's going to be doing, and the address?
Yeah, it's just a new website that she unveiled with all of her work, and she's got some things coming down the pipeline that will help people navigate around social media to get her work and the work of others. It's Hannah, HANNAHD, HannahDCox.com. That's COX.com.
Okay, great, thanks. So the other thing was I always look forward to listening to former senator on the tomorrow morning when you have him on. One of the things I wish callers could do is actually call in and ask questions to some of your guests instead of just asking you and then you relating it to them. I don't know if you'll ever be able to have that type of format, but I think that would be good. But I always want to ask him how does the individual go about having some some input and some effect on on what's going on as far as the coursework at not only public schools but in colleges. And since he's on the board of governors, you think he could actually have some sway on it as to what the actual curriculums are, which, as you and I well know, are basically indoctrination use. So what does he do to help stop that, or what can we ask him to do?
I'm not sure about at the highest levels of our education. It's funny that you say the highest level of our education, which, as you kind of highlighted, he does the most indoctrinating of any education mold that we have in place. But I know there are proposals getting pushed here in the North Carolina General Assembly that will, in fact, create a situation where schools, teachers are required to put their lesson plans, online, so they can be made public for you and I and everyone else to consume. I know there's a bill making its way through the North Carolina General Assembly that would do that. At least that would bring some attention to what's being taught in the schools, rather than just having kind of a, relying on your child's word, or based on what you pick up from their homework as far as what is being taught in the schools. I know that law is being discussed in our General Assembly.
Yeah. On another note, the other day I was had lunch at a new restaurant which I recommend. It's called the Cafe Chinois. But when I sat down, I was there eating, and in a few minutes this lady came in and sat down next to me, and I struck up a conversation with her. During the interim, she stuck down a couple of martinis. This was at lunch.
Nice.
And the more I got talking to her, come to find out she's the executive director of the Star News. I think it's another broadcast company. Anyway, I started asking her and complaining about what one of the reasons I don't subscribe to the Star News anymore was because I thought it had become just another, source of the Democratic Party, and also it was almost like another sheet of the predominantly black newspaper, the local journal. And I was telling her what I thought, and you know what she did? She cut the conversation off. She didn't want to hear it. She shuts you down. It's just like all the rest of them,
Well, no doubt. They have their agenda. They want to move forward. Well, and to give the local paper, just a little reprieve. They've been gutted over the course of the last number of years. Very limited in their resources. I mean, you pick up any, what we would consider a local paper these days, and it's just filled with rip and read AP wire stories from all over the country, things that you can pick up from your phone in 10 seconds, which is why that industry has been fading for a long, long time.
Yeah, well, that's true, and also with the content. I mean, it's what they're bringing out. So she said to me, she said, well, nobody reads, not many people read the newspaper anymore that are over the a certain age. And so I said, it's true. I said, and one of the reasons is because it's crap in there. Even young people know it.
Yeah, it's stuff that we can get within minutes through our fingertips, and that you haven't done a great job in adapting, adjusting, and frankly, if there's more local content, I would think people are more attracted to that kind of stuff because what's going on in your backyard. You kind of want to know what's going on in your backyard.
Yeah, they do some of that, but when they do it, like when the paper was reporting on the what was going on with the this earlier this year with the Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, they never really get into the background of the people that are members of that and where the source of it was. When I brought it to her attention that the leader of the Black Lives Matter is a communist, and she just kind of like, oh no, she just kind of skipped over that and just shut me down on that,
Well, they, of course, it must be a pretty good gig, though, if you're slamming martinis at noontime, while you're having lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a heck of a gig if you can get it. Hey, Fish, you have a great day, all right?
I hope you have the same, my friend. Bye-bye.
No doubt. Hannah Cox is one of our most favorite guests because she lays the wood down. There's no question about it. HannahDCox.com, her new website, if you want to find out her new endeavor, along with the work she does at the Foundation for Economic Education at fee.org. That's FEE.org. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
she probably has to stay drunk all the time because of all the dribble they're putting out in print. Print news is die immediate. It's not a local paper. It's not even printed here locally. It's printed in Fayetteville and shipped down. So to call it a local paper is, just not accurate. So Chief Williams has another opportunity to end the Star News, to go have a kneel session with Black Lives Matter, this time at the park formerly known as Hugh McRae Park, where a shooting took place. I have friends who were there playing t-ball with their 5-year-old children when this shooting took place. Again, just like on the Kidder Street, all the people who were there, witnesses to the event, refused to provide any information to the police. Again, obstruction of justice. Charge these people with obstruction of justice, throw them in jail, and they'll start talking. Donnie Williams, go kneel with Black Lives Matter, take Star News with you, go to Kidder Street, Hugh McRae Park. I'm sure this week we'll have another place for you to show up at as well.
Well,
thank you, sir. Have a good day.
And you too. At least this Mother's Day, unlike the last Mother's Day, there were not cars firing at one another on Eastwood Road, now just at the park. That was last Mother's Day, by the way, 1 year ago, that we got news on this Monday that someone had died in a shooting that took place among cars racing down Eastwood Road. Ultimately, the man who was shot, succumbed to his injuries as he ran off the road on Oleander and crashed into a tree. That was 1 year ago. Here we are now, 1 year later, and hundreds of people trying to dodge bullets in the middle of a park with, as the caller mentioned, their 5-year-old kids playing t-ball. Well, they're going to ramp up some police presence, as they've said, at our local parks. Wondering why that wasn't more in place prior to. It only takes a shooting for us to respond, being reactive rather than proactive. As we hit the top of the hour, hope you have a great Monday, folks. We'll talk with Steve Barger, Brunswick County School Board member tomorrow, local attorney Tom Goolsby, veteran and firearm instructor Ron Holmes also will be a part of the show. Have a great day.
Keeping Oak Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7